Good morning, guys, and welcome back to Computer Applications in Civil and Industrial Engineering. In this video, we will cover the most important part in Matlab, which is called loops. We said in the previous video that the programming constructs are of three main types. The first one is the default one, where Matlab is going in a sequential order from top to bottom all over the commands that we've written in the command window or in the script or in the function. And then we said that we have another type of constructs that is called selection, and in this selection we used if statement and then if, else if, and then in this selection construct, Matlab has to skip a block of commands or has to realize some commands if the condition is true or if it is valid, and then skip another block of commands for anything else. Now, the third construct type is the loops. As its name, the loops means I need to repeat some block of statements or of commands a number of times. So this loop is a new control construct. It is controlling the script, and it is used whenever I need to repeat a block of commands. Basically, guys, you should know that we have used previously loops implicitly without knowing that these are loops or these are written as loops inside the library of Matlab. Like, for example, as you can see here, the colon operator. In the colon operator, we have a loop. Basically, when I say that n is equal to 1 till 5 with an increment of 1, because here the colon operator by default has an increment of 1, this means, guys, that n is a row vector, and this n is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as if I'm going to add an increment of 1 for each element 5 times. So this is basically an implicit loop, like also the sum. Whenever I use the sum, total is equal to the sum of n. What does this mean? This means basically that I'm taking the first element, adding to 0, then the answer will be 1, will be added to the next element, which is here 2, and then the answer will be 3, added to 3, which is 6, then added to 4, which is 10, and then added to 5, which is 15. So I'm repeating the sum, or I'm repeating adding each element to the total 5 times, which means here I have a loop. So basically, guys, these are called implicit loop. So we have used them implicitly. Now, how to build an explicit loop? Let's see. Basically, guys, this is the schematic of a loop doing a sum. So as you can see here, guys, first of all, I'm setting the total to be 0. And then I'm adding this total for each element of n. The number of repetition or adding this n to the total is repeated as the length of this n. So if the length of this n is 5, I'm repeating this command 5 times. If it is n, then I'm repeating this command n times. And finally, the final command is printed out. So basically, guys, this is how the sum is written on Matlab using a loop. So guys, you can do it. You can first start the total by 0, set n to 1, add 0 to 1, then set n to 2, add 1 to 2, set n to 3, and so on. And you can see, guys, that instead of doing all of these commands, I can use a loop. I can use a loop that will repeat this for n is equal to 1 till 5. And this is called the for loop. You should know, guys, that there is two types of loops. The first type is for loop, and the second type is called while loop. In the for loop, guys, the main difference between them is that in for loop, I know the number of repetitions, or I know the number of iterations, while in while loop, I know the condition to stop this repetition. We'll go over them in details, and we'll go over the differences between them. Now let's start by the most use loop which is called the for loop. And let's do the sum explicitly using for. Now, I know that you're saying we have some, so why should I do this for loop? Basically, you don't have to do it. You have some, you can use it. But this is only to make you practicing the loops so that you can do a for loop for another objective where there is no built-in function that can do it, right? Or you can, for example, use the for loop to make a user-defined function that has this objective, a certain objective. So basically, if I need to do the sum, which is a built-in function, using a for loop for a row vector of n, or called n. First of all, you should set the total to be 0, and then you should use the for loop. Now, you should know, guys, that like if for has an end, alright? So guys, you should know that if a statement couldn't be executed if you don't have an end under it. Now for the function, the end is not mandatory. So whenever you have a function, you can remove the final end for the function itself, but you cannot remove this end for if and for or while. Now, in order to understand how this for loop is working, let's go over each command and see what will happen in the workspace whenever we use this for loop. First of all, in your workspace, you will have total is equal to 0 because I'm defining this as my first command. And then I'm using for n is equal to 1 till 5. But you should know, guys, that this is called the control statement. So the statement after for is called the control statement because it is basically controlling this loop. In this control statement, you will have the initial value, the increment, and the final value at which the loop will stop. And this is very important to know in the control statement. That's why it is called control statement, because it is controlling the loop by specifying the starting point, the increment, and the end point. So here the starting point is when n is equal to 1. And what you should also know, and this is a very important note, so let's write down this note. The first one is that control statement has 3 main points: starting, increment, and ending of the loop. And the second one is that in the control statement, even if it is defined as a vector, it becomes a scalar number. So guys, this is a very important note. In fact, in the control statement, the vector, even if it is defined as a vector, like in this case, Matlab will understand that this is one scalar number going from the starting point till ending point. So let's write down this, going from starting point to ending point. And I will prove this using Matlab after a while, but now let's focus on this script. So first of all, the total is equal to 0, then for n is going from 1 till 5. What Matlab does in this case is to define first n as the starting point, which is 1. And then, so in my workspace, n now is equal to 1. And then Matlab will go over the second command here after the for, which is total is equal to total plus n. Now total is equal to 0 because the first value of total is 0 plus n, which is 1, and this is basically 1. So in my workspace, total is now equal to 1. Now, do I end my for loop in order to go over the second command? No, because I did not reach the ending point of the control statement. So I'm going to repeat this, but now n will be equal to what? To 2. And then the total will be equal to the previous total, which is 1, plus n, which is 2, and now the total is equal to 3. So in my workspace now, total is equal to 3. Do I end this for loop? No, basically because I did not reach the ending point, which is 5. So n will be incremented, and then n is equal to 3, and then total will be equal to 3 plus 3, which is 6, and then I cannot end my for loop because I did not reach the ending point of n, so n is equal now to 4, and then total will be equal to 4, or to total, that is 6 plus 4, and then it is 10, and then guys here, this is the last one, the last iteration, and this is when n is equal to 5, and then the total will be equal to 10 plus 5, and this is 15. Can I end my loop? Yes, because n has reached its end, which is 5. So now guys, the for loop is ended, and then MATLAB will go to the last command. So basically when MATLAB ended the for loop, n was equal to 5 and total is equal to 15, and then MATLAB will print out in your command window total equals to percentage d, which is an integer, so it is 15, and then going to the next line. So this is basically, guys, how MATLAB is going over the for loop. This is how MATLAB is executing this loop. Now, guys, in order to prove to you that whenever we use a row vector in the control statement, MATLAB will understand that this is a scalar number going from the first element to the last element. I'm gonna write this script on MATLAB and run it, and you can see, guys, that in your workspace you will have n is equal to 5, and you will never have n as a row vector going from 1 to 5. So let's do it. Basically, guys, you can write down these commands on your command window, and you will have the answer. But in my case, I'm gonna do a script, right? So I'm gonna open a new script, define total as 0, and then starting my for loop. So guys, whenever you use a for loop, you should remember that you should define the end, or you should write down the end. Okay, so guys, if you don't write end, MATLAB will put a red line under 4, and this is an error, and MATLAB will tell you that there is an end that is missing. Okay, so it should match the 4, so that's why I'm gonna write directly this end, and then I'm gonna go between them and write my command, which is total is equal to total plus n with the semicolon, so that I will not print out this. Okay, and then fprintf. So guys, now if you do this, and then of course run it after saving it, so let's say try total, you can see that n here is 5. It will never be the row vector, and this is a very important note in your control statement. So even if the control statement is based on a row vector, MATLAB will understand that this is a scalar number going from the starting point of n till the ending point of n, which is here, till 5. Now, if you want to see what happens inside the for loop, and if this is the exact total that we talked about in my notepad, what I'm going to do is to remove the semicolon from here and run the code. Okay, and let's start my code with CLC clear all. And then run our code. If you remove the semicolon, what do you think will happen? Basically, for each iteration, total will be printed out here. So what will be the first total? It will be 1. It is not 0, because here, guys, in the first iteration, total will be 0 plus 1. And what will be the ending total, or the last one? It should be 15. So let's run this and see what happens in my command window. So guys, this is what happens in my command window. Total is 1, 3, 6, 10, 15, and then total is equal to 15. However, in your workspace, total will be the last number. So usually we'll not do this. We'll not remove the semicolon inside the for loop, except if you want to make sure that this what happens inside your for loop, because this, guys, will increase the time of running MATLAB. And you know that the time is also an important factor that we need to decrease. So we need to decrease your running time. Now, this is a very simple script, but if you have a very large script with a lot of several different functions, so you need to decrease the running time, so that's why you should put semicolon. We'll continue in the next video. Thank you.